What's up YouTube, it's the one and only legend of winning, aka Low, and I am back with another video. Now, as we all know, LeBron James is one of the greatest players in NBA history. Every minute that he plays on the court validates the argument that he is indeed a top 5 player, and a lot of people will go as far as say if he beats the Golden State Warriors in his next upcoming finals, then he will indeed eclipse Michael Jordan. However, you have some other people who are claiming that their argument isn't necessarily valid. Because of this conflict of interest between LeBron James, especially comparing him to all-time greats such as Michael Jordan, there has been a back and forth on where exactly LeBron lands in all-time greatness. Through this debate and argument, a lot of people have highlighted LeBron's greatest weaknesses and his strengths. But for whatever reason, I consistently don't hear what needs to be said about LeBron James on both hands. So because of that, I decided to make this video to make an argument for and against LeBron when it comes to the comparison of Michael Jordan or anybody else for that matter. So first, let's start off positive and let's talk about what is LeBron's greatest weakness. Now, LeBron is far from perfect. Through majority of his career, his lack of shooting ability has really left him in predicaments, especially in the NBA Finals and playoff series where he needed to be bailed out. Also, a lot of people still hang over the fact that LeBron is imperfect in the NBA Finals, especially losing to the Dallas Mavericks in 2011 when he joined with Bosh and Wade in Miami to form a super team. And as he gets older, it blows me away how terrible of a free throw shooter he is, but then again, nobody is perfect. But even with those flaws of LeBron, none of them are his greatest weakness. A lot of abilities and skills that he lacks, he still finds ways to be able to dominate without them. So what exactly is LeBron's greatest weakness? The amount of success that LeBron has had over the past 7 years is almost ridiculous, and it just doesn't make any sense. And even comparing it to other all-time great players, there's something consistent in LeBron's career that he doesn't have that other all-time great players do have, and that is the amount of help that other all-time great players have received that LeBron consistently lacks. Now, a lot of people view help as teammates, and that's it. However, there's much more when it comes to building a basketball team. Sure, you have to look at the teammates that surrounding the all-time great player, but you also have to take into account the coaches, the GMs, and even the market that they play in. I mean, if you play in LA, it's much easier to convince free agents to play for the team than it is for, let's say, Cleveland. When you go back and look at all the great players in NBA history, they all have something in common that LeBron never had, regardless if it's Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Kobe, Tim Duncan. They all play for franchises that were able to build around them within a 7-year window. However, LeBron played for the Cleveland Cavaliers in his first 7 years of his career, and let's just say they fell short. But even with all of that being said, I do believe there is a larger problem with LeBron James and the team that he is featured on. LeBron James has a consistent theme with the teams that he is on over the past 7 years. And that is the older players that are on his team tend to break down towards the end of the stint. Looking at LeBron James, he is such a dominant player, he can consistently find himself not just in the playoffs, but pushing deep into the playoffs and eventually to the finals, 7 years in a row to be exact. Because of this, it makes it extremely hard for people to debate where he lies when it comes to greatness. But also it makes it harder on him to carry teams when his roster or his supporting cast features a lot of older players. Richard Jefferson, Channing Frye, Kyle Korver, Darren Williams. Sure, they're all great players who can space the floor. However, their lack of athleticism really doesn't give them much to do defensively. And on top of that, we don't know how much more they can give through the next couple of years. And it doesn't really seem like LeBron is willing to slow down anytime soon. So that does bother me, that the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers still have not been able to piece any younger players on his team that show a lot of potential. Now, when you look at other all-time great players, this wasn't a problem whatsoever. When Bill Russell got older, the Boston Celtics brought in John Havlicek. When it came to Larry Bird, they brought in Dennis Johnson towards the end of his career. Magic Johnson, they traded away Norm Nixon to go out and get Byron Scott. Dr. J, they brought in Moses Malone. When you look at Michael Jordan, the Bulls actually stashed and drafted Tony Kukoc in the early 90s. So by the time Michael came out of retirement the first time, Tony Kukoc was already there on the team prepared to win a championship. championship. Obviously, David Robinson with Tim Duncan. You had Kawhi Leonard. And even looking at Kobe Bryant in those bleak years where Kobe was putting up ridiculous scoring numbers and it really wasn't amounting to wins, the Los Angeles Lakers were still able to find talent in the draft in which they picked up Andrew Bynum. However, this is something that has never happened for LeBron James whatsoever, and that is really, really concerning. But with that being said, ironically, LeBron's greatest weakness could potentially be the strongest argument for why he is the greatest player of all time. Now, on the other hand, you have LeBron's greatest strength. LeBron is a player that is so well-rounded, it blows me away every single time I watch him play. There isn't really an error in his game whatsoever. The fact that LeBron James can facilitate, score, rebound, play defense all on an elite level, and this year, for whatever reason, he just kind of came out of nowhere with this elite level three-point ability, it really just has me speechless sometimes. And it's astonishing to see the progression in his game, even at an advanced age. However, similar to LeBron's weakness, LeBron's strength has an ironic twist. Even though LeBron is a great player, none of his abilities or skills is his greatest strength. The truth is, LeBron's greatest strength is that he plays in arguably the weakest conference of all time. Now, the reason why I say arguably is because back in the 60s and 70s, the playoffs and the amount of teams were all structured so differently that it's hard to compare from one era to the next. However, I can make a very, very valid argument that LeBron is playing in the weakest conference that we've seen in the last 30 years. Now, I already know what a lot of people are going to say in the comment section, that LeBron can't control which teams are in the Eastern Conference. And I actually agree with you on that. However, over the past couple of months to a year, I've heard this consistent argument that LeBron doesn't have to win 6 championships to eclipse Michael Jordan because the quality of teams that LeBron plays in the finals supersede the quality of teams that MJ is playing in the finals. And I agree with that as well. So if we're going to talk about quality, and MJ doesn't have any control of the quality teams that he plays in the finals, but if we are going to talk about quality, then let's talk about it in its entirety when it comes to the postseason. So when it comes to the first round, LeBron has never lost, which is pretty impressive on the surface value. However, when you take a little bit deeper dive into it, you start to realize it's not as impressive as it sounds. Looking at the teams that LeBron has played in the first round, he has never faced a 50-win team. Actually, he's never gone up against a team with 45 wins. The best team that he's ever faced in the first round, record-wise, was the 2016 Detroit Pistons that won 44 games, which means that majority of the teams that LeBron has played in the first round are teams that are a handful of games above 500. Actually, some of these teams have a losing record themselves, which really is embarrassing. I mean, the Eastern Conference has been a terrible conference for many years now, but I really didn't believe it was this bad. Now, to put that in comparison, let's look at Kobe Bryant and what he's been able to do in the first round of playoffs throughout his entire career. Looking at his competition, Kobe Bryant has never gone up against a losing team in the playoffs. And obviously, Kobe Bryant isn't perfect. He's lost certain series, as you clearly know, the Phoenix Suns in the mid-2000s. However, if we want to talk about quality of teams, Kobe Bryant has played much more quality teams throughout his tenure in the NBA in the first round compared to LeBron James. And the same thing can be said about Michael Jordan as well. Michael has faced multiple teams in the first round with 50 wins or more, and he has beat some teams with 50 wins or more, such as the Cavaliers and the Charlotte Hornets. But you can go all the way back in the 80s with Magic and Bird. Every all-time great player at some point of their career played a team with at least 45 wins or more in the first round of playoffs. Furthermore, since we're talking about 50-win teams, let's look into the bigger picture here. How many times do you believe a 50-win team occurs in the Eastern Conference since LeBron has been in the NBA? On average, around 3 times, which means that since LeBron has been in the NBA, in the Eastern Conference, if you win 50 games, you are immediately guaranteed home court advantage, which is something that cannot be said when it comes to Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, or even Larry Bird. Also, to rebuttal this, I know a lot of people will make the comment that the NBA in the 90s was actually significantly weaker because there was a lot of expansion teams. Now, this is somewhat true. There were expansion teams in the late 80s and 90s that did leave the talent a bit more thin out when it comes to certain teams. However, even with new expansion teams in the NBA all throughout the 90s, the teams were still better than what we have in the Eastern Conference today. Even going back and looking at the 2 seasons where the Bulls dominated the Eastern Conference, with the 1 year where they won 72 games and the year after that when they won 69, there were still multiple teams in the NBA who were winning 50 plus games, some of which were actually expansion teams as well. And also, let's just be honest, what is the Brooklyn Nets right now? I mean, that's an expansion team. I know they're not technically an expansion team, but that's an expansion team. What about the Charlotte Bobcats when LeBron was a bit younger? That right there was an expansion team. The Philadelphia 76ers over the past 4 years, that's an expansion team. But then you have the argument of what about the individual talent that is in the Eastern Conference? However, take this for consideration. Since LeBron James has entered the NBA, on average, there's only 5 players that play in the East that actually make an All-NBA team. Only 5. And what makes it even worse is that the amount of players in the Eastern Conference that has been deemed All-NBA worthy, that number is starting to dwindle down even fewer. Back in 2015, there were only 3 All-NBA players that resided from the Eastern Conference. LeBron James, who was the first team, Pau Gasol, who was the second team, and Kyle Lowry, who was the third team. And actually, if you want to get more in detail with it, LeBron James is the only player since Joakim Noah won his Defensive Player of the Year award who has been an Eastern Conference talent who has made the first team All-NBA. Since then, you have to go all the way back when Dwight Howard was playing in Orlando. That's how long it's been since a quality player has consistently made it to a first team All-NBA that plays in the Eastern Conference that isn't LeBron. So looking at the different records that LeBron plays in the first round or even the second and third round, looking at the amount of teams that win 50 games on a year-to-year basis in the Eastern Conference, and even looking at the individual talents that LeBron has to go up against in the Eastern Conference, it really doesn't throw me by surprise whatsoever that LeBron gets by the Eastern Conference so easily on a year-to-year basis. So yes, I do understand that LeBron is a phenomenal talent. He's extremely superb. But when you're in a weak conference like this, it becomes your greatest strength. But on the flip side of that, a lot of people may make the argument that that is the reason why they don't really view what LeBron does in the playoffs that astonishing, because it really is expected. However, tell me what you think in the comment section below. I know a lot of people want to have different opinions on this, so I do want to hear what you have to say. So leave the comments. Also, leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Hit the subscribe button for more awesome videos. And I'll see y'all later. Peace.